Hello and welcome back to the final of the Magnus Carlsen Tour, that is between Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. Now we are at day 6, and the score so far was 3-1 to Hikaru Nakamura. So that meant that Magnus Carlsen absolutely had to win day 6 to force a day 7. So we are going to join for the fourth game of the day. And actually, Magnus Carlsen is already leading. He did manage to win one game. And now the score is 2-1 to Carlsen for this day. So Hikaru Nakamura has to win this game in order to equalize for the day and force a tiebreak of day 6. And actually, another important part is that Magnus Carlsen had a very bad back pain for the day. So we could see on his camera that he was not even sitting at his chair, but he was just like laying there and taking up all sorts of very weird postures because he had a really bad back pain. But actually, Carlsen so far played really well. So, well, let's go to the game. So this is a must win for Nakamura, and he's with the white pieces. Starts with e4, and as usual, we go for a Berlin. So e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, and knight f6. And, well, Nakamura now has to win, so he plays the move d3. And they will actually follow their previous game, game 2 of the day, for quite a long time. So comes d6, c3, g6, castles, bishop g7, rook e1, all very standard moves. Let's make a few more. Knight f1, a6, bishop a4, h6, knight g3, d5, h3. So now we are going for new territory. So already Nakamura deviated for their previous game. He's going to also play a bit different plan. So comes b5, bishop c2, bishop e6, and here Nakamura puts his bishop on d2. Now comes queen d7, a4, rook a d8, a takes b, a takes d, and b4. And well, now we can say that the opening phase of the game has concluded, and actually Nakamura could be quite happy about the position. So most all of the pieces are actually on the board. The position is quite complicated, the center is not yet clarified, and actually white has a slight edge. So in this position, Carlsen decided to clarify the center and play the move d4. So the idea behind d4 is that he wants this d3, d4 and the c3 pawns to exchange, and then the d4 square could actually be well controlled by black. So, and actually in this position, Nakamura had a great continuation. So here you can stop the video and try to figure out how to go on. So the problem for black is that his pieces are actually quite a bit crowded, and actually his position is pretty much hinging on this e5 pawn. However, there's only one defender of this pawn, the knight on c6. So to d4, there was an option to try to chase away this c6 knight with the move, starting with the move c4. And the idea is that if black takes, then there comes b5, and now we are really chasing away the knight, and after say knight e7, white can just take on e5. And say queen b5, knight takes c4, now actually white is doing pretty well. There is a plan of playing bishop a4, because there is a huge pin here. So there's a double attack there, not a pin. And yeah, right now white is doing actually quite nice, quite well. So yeah, so this was an option, but Nakamura missed it, and he played the move queen c1. And here Carlsen's plan is actually well going to be executed. So dc, bishop g3, and it's clear that the d4 square is actually quite weak in the white camp. There is the knight, the queen, the rook, and maybe later on the bishop, and also the pawn controlling this square. So here comes knight h7, queen b2, queen d6, knight e2. So everything is going around this e5 pawn and this d4 square. Now Carlsen plays the move knight g5 to well, try to exchange the f3 knight, which is controlling the d4 square as well. Nakamura does not want to exchange, plays knight d2. Now comes bishop c8 with the idea to reroute this knight to e6 and then later probably to d4. Nakamura plays rook e8, bishop f8, putting some pressure on the b4 pawn. Comes rook b1, bishop d7. So Carlsen only needs a draw, so he actually tries to sort of simplify the position, exchange pieces, in the hope that at least the draw will be secured for him. while Nakamura plays rook a6, comes rook e8, takes, h4, knight e6, all very natural moves, and after knight f3 there is some more pressure on the pawn, comes bishop g7, bishop b3, and this is the position when Carlsen decided that this is time to do something, and he jumps in with knight d4. So, well, usually we occupy the weak square with the pieces, but you can see that after taking, there will be a pawn occupying actually on d4. So now the d4 square is not weak anymore, but black has a pawn on it. However, the other advantage that black managed to get with this exchange is that now black has two bishops. But the center now is quite open, and white can push f4 with the hope to push further with e5, weakening this d4 square, d4 pawn, and hopefully at some point attack the black king. Comes bishop g4, e5, queen e7, and now the knight takes on d4 and comes queen takes h4. So we can see that the position is opening up very quickly, and black has the two bishops, so it should actually favor black. So white has to do something very quickly. And actually the most straightforward way to do something would be just taking the pawn on b5. It's a bit surprising this is not what Nakamura chose. So, well, after knight b5, the most straightforward continuation is playing rook d8, putting some pressure on this pawn, and when white defends, there could come bishop f5 with actually a double attack. This pawn is hanging, and also this pawn is hanging. But here white could actually still continue for an advantage with queen f2. Now black is forced to exchange, and in this position, actually if you take with the bishop, then there is a problem that after exchanging, the pawn on c7 is hanging. For that reason, in this position, black actually has to be a bit more clever, but he does have a nice way to equalize, which is rook takes d3. And the idea is that after bishop takes d3, bishop takes d3, this is actually a double attack. And well, after rook c1, bishop b5, it's hard to imagine that the game will end up any other way than in a draw. But this is not what Nakamura did. Nakamura actually went for a bit of a slower plan, and he got punished very badly by Carlsen. So he just played the move rook c1, attacking this c7 pawn. However, it gives time for Carlsen to activate his rook. So now this rook is attacking on d4, and there is a very huge threat of just playing queen g3 and queen e3 check and pick up this knight. And while Nakamura didn't continue well, he actually just more or less blundered away the whole game. He played the move queen c3, but as mentioned before, now comes queen g3 with a huge power, and this basically is game over. So the problem is that now white's position is just collapsing, so queen e3 check is a huge threat, and also if black picks up the f4 pawn, then the e5 pawn is gonna be picked up, and the two bishops is gonna just kill white. So Nakamura tries to go for some tricks at the very end, so he plays queen c7, now rook d7, queen c8, king h7. The problem is that now white is up a pawn, he has to move, but his position is just completely in pieces. Queen e3 is a huge threat, queen takes f4 is hanging. Now there is this pin as well, so the rook is able to do this covered attack against the white queen. So the position is just horrible. And well, here the last trick from Nakamura is coming with rook a1, with the idea that after rook takes d4, he played the move e6, and now he wants to play rook e8 and try to checkmate black. But well, Carlsen is too strong for this, so rook takes f4 is coming, and the problem is that after rook e8, the black side is delivering checkmate quicker. After bishop d4, king h1, queen h4 is checkmate. So well, Nakamura after rook takes f4 even threw in the towel. So this was game 4, and Nakamura did not manage to equalize. What's more, he actually lost the game, but it doesn't matter too much for the score. So now Carlsen equalized for the days, so now it's 3-3, and we are all set up for the grand finale of day 7. So whoever wins day 7 is going to be the champion of the Magnus Carlsen Tour. So my next video is going to be about the last day of the final.